Hey, for this video, what I want to talk to you about is how can you use a tree diagram to help you find all of the different possibilities of ordering things from a menu, and also how can we find the probabilities using the sample space that we created. So with this, what we have is a restaurant is running a special for a 3-course meal. From the following list, customers can order 1 appetizer, 1 entree, and 1 dessert. Draw a tree diagram and list out the sample space. So for this particular menu that they have that you can order from, our appetizers are calamari or fried mushrooms. Our entrees are ravioli, pizza, chicken alfredo, or ziti. And our desserts are tiramisu or cannoli. So with this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose a letter for each of these just to make it easier for when I'm setting them up so I don't have to write out the entire word because that would just take up a lot of space. So I'm going to use C for calamari, M for mushrooms, R for ravioli, P for pizza. I'm going to use A for the chicken alfredo and Z for ziti. And then I'm going to use T for the tiramisu, and because I've already used C for calamari so that we don't get confused, I'm just going to use an I since it ends with an I. It was the only one that repeated, so I just had to come up with something. You can call it whatever you need to as long as anybody looking at it knows what you're talking about. So with this, just to get an idea of how many different combinations we should have, we can use the fundamental counting principle to help us see how many different ways we can arrange this. So we have 2 appetizers, 4 entrees, and 2 desserts. So that means that our sample space should have 2 times 4 times 2, which is 16 different possibilities or different ways of ordering 16 different ways of ordering an appetizer, an entree, and a dessert. I'm getting all tongue twisted from this. So what we're going to do is we're going to look first at our appetizers. So as far as appetizers go, we have 2 options. We can either get calamari or we can get fried mushrooms. Okay. From there, this branches out. Each of these branch out into the 4 different possibilities. So this one is going to be a larger branch because we can either get the ravioli. So this is for our entree. We can either get ravioli, we can get pizza, we can get Alfredo, or we can get ziti. The same thing for if we ordered the mushrooms first. The mushrooms could have been ordered first and we could get ravioli, or we could get pizza, or we can get Alfredo, or we can get ziti. So then what we would do is each of these are going to branch into the desserts. So depending upon what we got on the first ones are the combinations that we can have. So I could have got calamari with ravioli, and then I can get tiramisu, or I can get the cannoli. Okay. Or I could have got calamari with the pizza, and then the tiramisu with, or the cannoli, one or the other. I could have got the calamari with the Alfredo, and then I can either get tiramisu or I can get cannoli. Or I could have got calamari with the ziti and then tiramisu or cannoli. The same thing for the fried mushrooms. If I would have ordered them first, then I can get the mushrooms with the ravioli and the tiramisu. Or I could get the mushrooms with the ravioli and the cannoli, and if this isn't making you hungry, I don't know what will. We could get the mushrooms with the pizza and the tiramisu, or we could get the mushrooms with the pizza and the cannoli, the mushrooms with the Alfredo and the tiramisu, or the mushrooms and the Alfredo and the cannoli. And then for our last choice, which I kind of didn't leave myself enough space, I spaced better on the first one, I can get the mushrooms with the ziti and the tiramisu, or I can get the mushrooms with the ziti and the cannoli. Okay, so with this, it shows us visually what our sample space is, and then we can write it all out. So for our sample space, again, we have 16 different combinations. Okay, so we could have got the calamari with the ravioli and the tiramisu, or cannoli calamari, ravioli, and the cannoli. Or we could get the calamari with the pizza and the tiramisu. Or the calamari with the pizza and the cannoli. Or we can get calamari with Alfredo and tiramisu. Or calamari with Alfredo and cannoli. Or calamari, ziti, tiramisu. Calamari, ziti, and cannoli. And then we would have to go to the mushrooms and do the same thing. So we would have the mushrooms with the ravioli and the tiramisu, the mushrooms, the ravioli, and the cannoli, the mushrooms, pizza, tiramisu, mushrooms, pizza, cannoli, mushrooms, Alfredo, tiramisu, mushrooms, Alfredo, and cannoli. And then the last combination is the mushrooms with the ziti and the tiramisu, or the mushrooms with the ziti and the cannoli. So for this, a lot of times, if you get too large of a sample space, it really does get kind of complicated, and you kind of have to keep track of all of the different things, which is why I put the letters up here. My students know how much I like to tease them with food problems, especially because their class runs in the middle of the day. So a lot of times we have food analogies, so I felt it would be fun to do this as a video. Okay, we could use this to find probabilities. The first one that we're going to look at is, what is the probability of ordering ravioli and tiramisu? That means that we have to have both of them. Okay, so what we are going to be looking for is, where does it say both R and T? So right here we had calamari with the ravioli and the tiramisu. And then we also have it here, the ravioli and the tiramisu with the mushrooms. So those are the only two times that we get both ravioli and tiramisu. Anytime it says and, it has to be true for both of them. So we had 2 times out of a total of 16, which would reduce to 1 out of 8. So this is the probability of selecting ravioli and tiramisu. The next one that I want to look at is, what is the probability of just tiramisu for dessert? Okay, there's no other stipulation, it's just tiramisu. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through and look for all of the T's. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So there are 8 times out of 16, or half of the time, that we could have ordered tiramisu. Okay, moving on into something else, we're going to look at pizza for the entree. So this time we want to look at, what is the probability of ordering pizza? So we would go through and find all of the ones where there is a P for pizza. So we could have got the pizza with the calamari and the tiramisu, or we could have got the pizza with the calamari and cannoli, or we could have got the pizza with the mushrooms and the cannoli, or the pizza with the mushrooms and the tiramisu. So that happens 4 times out of 16, or we could have reduced it to 1/4. Okay, just one last one, and then you can go get a snack because you're probably hungry after watching this and hearing about all this great food. The last one that we're going to look at is, what is the probability of getting calamari, okay, or cannoli? So for this one, it's an or question. That means it has to only be true for one of them, not both. And I just spelled cannoli wrong, so let me fix that. Should have put 2 N's in there. So for this one, it has to be either one or the other. It doesn't have to be in both. So if it has either a C or an I, we're going to count it. So this one has a C. This one has both. It can have both. This one has calamari, calamari, calamari. Okay, calamari, calamari, calamari. So we know that at least half of them have calamari because of the fact that half of our combinations have a C. Okay, but then we would also have to look for the next one to see if there's cannoli. So we have cannoli with the mushrooms 1, 2, 3, 4 more times. So if I take the 8 plus the 4, this happens 12 times out of 16, which reduces to 3/4. So the probability of ordering calamari or cannoli is 3 out of 4. So if it says and, it has to be in both of them. If it says or, it only has to be one of them. As always, thanks for watching. If you have any questions or there are additional topics you would like for me to cover, please let me know.